welcome back to Buckets and Bibles. It's gonna be a little bouncy because I'm on some back roads, but I was thinking about how different my life is coming from living in the city and the suburbs to looking for a more simple life, right? And simple but not easy. So the simple life ain't so simple. There's a lot of dynamics to it. Now it's fulfilling, rewarding. There's freedom in it. Certain liberties that you have in the country you don't have in the city, and that's what I want to talk about. So we went from living in a nice neighborhood, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, boat in the garage, leather furniture, big screw, all this stuff, right? We went from living that way, and when we transitioned, we didn't transition to an immediate homestead. We actually transitioned to a little bit of camper life, which is kind of glamping, I think they call it. And we stayed in a lot of RV parks and stuff like that, and it was kind of a camping kind of feel to it, I guess. Not tent camping, but you know what I'm saying. And one of the things that we started doing before we moved and started that is we started actually doing gardening. And so we had a little bit of experience in gardening, but what we really wanted was an off-grid homestead. We didn't want to be tied to the grid. We wanted our own stuff. And awesome. I mean, awesome. So let me tell you a little bit about my experience in that. Is I went from camper life, to camper life off-grid, which, if you live somewhere where the weather is very mild for most of the seasons, it's not super cold or it's not super hot, then no biggie, right? It's pretty basic stuff you need off-grid. But if you live somewhere where it is pretty hot and also can get pretty cold, if you're down into the teens, or if you're up into the hundreds with high levels of humidity, things can be a little bit more challenging off-grid, and it's a little bit of a culture shock. Another thing to off-grid living is figuring out how much power, solar you need, kind of battery banks you need that are sustainable to the style of living that you're familiar with. It takes a lot if you're going to try to live like you do in the city or in an apartment or something like that. It takes a lot of battery bank, a lot of power, a lot of solar panels. It takes a lot to have that system sustainable enough where you can run air conditioning off it and your other stuff at the same time. So that takes a lot of money. Well, being me, I don't have a lot of money, so generator was the next thing. And you're going to spend money in fuel and in generator maintenance or in replacing generators, because a lot of generators are not meant to run all the time. They're meant to run a couple days here and there throughout the year, not necessarily a whole year with a couple of days off. So you learn the hard way on stuff. But the thing about off-grid living, or even just your own homestead, if you're living off-grid, what you need to understand is, like, you are now your own power company. So if the grid goes down, you're the one that has to fix it. Even if it's just changing the oil in the generator, you're the one doing all that stuff. If you need water, you're your own water company. So if a valve freezes or a pipe busts, you're fixing it. Also, all of those things require the initial setup. And the initial setup is you're going to build infrastructure. And infrastructure is it's mandatory in a lot of places for you to have something, because a lot of off-grid places they're way back in the cuts somewhere, you know. They're way down a dirt road, or 5 miles out, or whatever they are. They're not necessarily really close to town, and you got to have commo. You're gonna have radios. You're gonna have to charge. Talk to yourself, your neighbors. You're gonna probably have some kind of cell phone for emergencies. If you still run a cell phone, it's whatever. You do you, boo. But I think that one of the things is, how long does it take to build stuff that's going to last and be sustainable? How much money does that cost? And then what is the upkeep? What's the maintenance on that? How long is it going to take me to run to town, get a replacement part, or order a new pump or a new filter system or whatever it is, and then wait for it to show up and install it, or have one on hand if you're balling like that, and you can have 2 or 3 sitting on the shelf, so when one goes out, you got a replacement. Then yeah, things are good. But if you're poor, there's certain things you need to understand. If you're not super handy with plumbing or electrical, if you don't really quite know how to do gutters, or clean out, there's a lot of maintenance that goes with having your own systems. That's what I'm saying is, off-grid, simple life, so all of a sudden it's not so simple. Now, if you build a really badass system, and you build it over time, eventually you can get to a point where it's pretty low maintenance. Maybe you got to go out and clean the connectors, or brush the snow off the panels, but it gets pretty low maintenance. Everything's insulated good. Maybe you got a little leaky valve every once in a while, you change it out or something. But when you're building the systems, there's a learning curve. You're gonna try to do things the best you can, and then you're gonna learn, oh well, maybe this system isn't the best, or we need more. And I guess all of it really to say is, understand that when you live off grid, you are responsible for your own power. You're your own power grid guy. You're the electrician. You're the plumber. You're the maintenance, the building maintenance guy. You're the roofer. You're everything that you could think of that you're going to need or want for your homestead. That's it. You're going to have all those things. And then when you're off grid, everything's usually a little bit harder to do because you don't have regular power. If your solar goes down or your generator runs out of fuel, and you need to charge some batteries or do something, it's rough if you got to walk to town or call a neighbor, or just makes everything a little bit harder. So you got to be a little more methodical about decision makings and preparation, so that you don't run into those problems. Life happens, it's going to happen, but things to consider for sure. So I was just thinking about that and thought I'd make a quick video. So anyhow, I hope you got something out of that. Shalom.